From Egghead to Wano, Oda has dropped a ton of religious references, and now we need to piece these together. I've talked before how Luffy and Kuma have made callbacks to Hinduism, Buddhism, and more recently Christianity. The most obvious example being back in Wano when Luffy awakened his devil fruit. It's evident that this was referring to the Transfiguration from the New Testament, where Jesus and his 3 disciples go to the top of a mountain to pray. On top of the mountain, it states that Jesus was transfigured before them, his face shining as the sun, and his garments became white as light. This is identical to what happened atop Onigashima when we witnessed the awakening of the sun god Nika. Luffy's clothes literally turned pure white. Not to mention Luffy quote unquote died and then came back to life. Again referencing Jesus and his resurrection. Even look at the last panel of chapter 1089, and it's clearly reminiscent of Jesus and his 12 disciples in the Last Supper painting. Oda then continued to make religious references with Kuma, where Kuma was a pastor that lived in a church. There he would heal people of their pain and illnesses through the use of his devil fruit, and he'd only do this once a week on Sundays, unmistakably referring to Easter or Resurrection Sunday, which is another reference to Jesus' resurrection. But I also think this is talking about the Day of the Sun, which connects to the sun god Nika as well. Kuma was freeing people of their burdens by being the hand of liberation. In exchange, he suffered for the people, torturing himself, just as Jesus would cure people of their illnesses by simply touching them. And if the connection couldn't be clear, he saved humanity by being crucified through his hands. All of this was just a setup to show that Luffy and Kuma are 2 sides of the same coin. Luffy is the savior of humanity. He is the one that will save the world. However, Kuma is the martyr that has to suffer for that freedom. Kuma's suffering stems from being the lone survivor of the Buccaneer race, the race that is said to carry on the giant lineage. Saturn even gives us some hints on why the Buccaneer race was wiped out. He states, why do human beings feel the need to do what they are explicitly forbidden from doing? He also said the Buccaneer race committed a grave crime against the world. Here I think it's evident the connection to the original sin from the book of Genesis, where Adam and Eve, the first humans, disobeyed God by eating the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. By doing this, they lost their immortality since they could no longer access the tree of life. This event is often referred to as the fall, indicating the transition of humanity from a state of innocent obedience to a state of guilty disobedience. The original act of disobedience is said to have tainted the nature of humanity, leading to the doctrine of inherited sin. This means that all humans are born with a sinful nature as a result of Adam and Eve's actions. Thus, I think this elucidates on what happened to the Buccaneer race, where maybe they were the first people to eat the devil fruits or gain access to some forbidden knowledge, which was the grave crime committed against the world. And due to the inherited sin, all of the Buccaneer people had to be wiped out. Luckily, thanks to Sabo, we know that the book of Genesis exists in the One Piece world, and it talks of the existence of eternal youth. I think this would explain why Imu and the Gorosei appear to not age, as they may have access to the Tree of Life. Currently in the story, we know of the Treasure Tree Adam, the Sunlight Tree Eve, and the Tree of Knowledge from Ohara. Hence, it's quite possible that the Tree of Life is at Marijoa or somewhere on the Red Line. It even states in the book of Genesis that a river flows out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divides, becoming 4 branches. And as we know, the Tree of Life is in the Garden of Eden. And where in the One Piece world do we see this river? It's obviously at Reverse Mountain, where the water flows to all 4 seas. More recently, we saw Kuma and Bonnie talking about visiting the legendary Sky Islands, which might mean we're going to go back to the sky soon, but also made me remember about another religious figure from the sky. It's our boy Arou, aka Mad Monk, who is the captain of the Fallen Monk Pirates. And this is where the number madness begins. As you probably know, Oda loves messing around with the meanings behind certain numbers. So Arouge's bounty is 108 million berries. To start off, 108 is considered a sacred number in Buddhism as it represents the 108 steps to enlightenment. 108 is also a Harshad number, and Harshad in Sanskrit means joy giver, undoubtedly referencing Joy Boy. It doesn't stop there. The diameter of the sun is about 108 times the diameter of the earth. Even the distance from the earth to the moon is about 108 times the moon's diameter. This just screams sun god Nika, and it's just more symbolism between the sun and the moon. Back in chapter 793, we see Arouge's crew refer to him as the High Priest, and this was a reference to the Hebrew Bible, where the High Priest was the chief religious leader of the Israelites. I think Arouge is specifically inspired by Samson, the man of the sun, who was the last of the judges for the ancient Israelites. It is said that Samson pushed on the columns of the Temple of Dagon, collapsing it and killing the Philistines. This would explain why Arouge fights with a giant pillar, and again connects him back to the sun god Nika. I also wanted to talk about Arouge's crew, the Fallen Monk Pirates, being a reference to the fallen angels. The Book of Enoch, a Jewish apocalyptic text, and certain passages from Genesis suggest that fallen angels mated with humans, producing giants. The connection between angels and giants starts all the way back before Skypiea when we see those giant angels in the sky. So for the final piece of the puzzle, we can look at Enel's Great Space Operation, where we learn that the moon people with wings fled to the Earth in search of resources. These people were called the Birkins, and they must have been the one to procreate with the humans, which led to the creation of the giant race. In chapter 1096, we learned that the celestial dragons went to God Valley to collect the natural resources. And back in Ohara, the One Piece world was revealed to have multiple moons. So maybe the celestial dragons were just on a different moon running dry of resources. Thus they came down to Earth in the same way as the people of Burka. This is when the Void Century likely took place, where Joy Boy, who was probably a giant, and the other giants fought and lost against the Celestials. Somewhere in the mix, the giants or descendants of giants ate the devil fruits or got their hands on some forbidden knowledge, which led to their persecution and genocide. I think there's still a ton that needs to be cleared up here, but this does give us a rough outline of the history of the One Piece world. Oda's a mad genius when it comes to tying all of these references together. Man, I just love One Piece. Let me know what you guys think, but yeah, that's all I got. Like and subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you guys later. Deuces.